Welcome students. I hope you all are staying safe at home. Today we will be learning the chapter planning of your commerce. So let's look into the meaning of planning. So planning is the process of deciding in advance the objectives to be achieved during a given time period, formulating alternative course of action to achieve them, and selecting the best course of action. So planning basically means deciding in advance the future course of action. It means that we take a peek into our future with this, so that we can decide in advance how we're going to deal with the situations that we're going to face in the future. Next, the features or characteristics of planning. So the first characteristic, planning is goal-oriented. So planning seeks to achieve certain goals of the organization. It ensures that the action lead to the desired result quickly and economically. The next features is planning is future oriented. So planning is looking ahead and preparing to meet the future challenges and opportunities. Next one is planning is an intellectual process. Yes, planning is an intellectual process because it is a mental exercise that involves creative thinking and imagination, which depends on the intellectual of a human being. The next one is planning is a primary function. Yes, planning is a primary function because it provides base for other function of management, which is organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. Planning is the first function of management. It provides the foundation for managerial action. And next one is planning is pervasive. So by pervasive, planning is pervasive because it is required in all types of organization, whether it's a school, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a government organization or a non-government organization. So it is needed in every kind of organization and also at each and every level of organization from the top level to the bottom level. So that's why planning is pervasive. Next, we have planning is a continuous process. So plans are prepared for a specific time period, and at the end of those specific time period, new plans have to be prepared. And on the same way, the existing plan have to be revised with the changes that take place in the certain conditions. So that's why it is a continuous process. It is a never-ending process. Next, we have planning involves choice. So planning involves choice because it is the process of choosing among the best alternative course of action. The use for planning arises because there exist alternatives, goals, as well as different ways of reaching those goals. Next, planning aims at efficiency. So plans are prepared to achieve the objectives and goals of the organization in the best way, and a good plan leads to achieving all these objectives and goals of the organization at low cost. Next, we have importance of planning. Why planning is important? Number one, focuses attention on objectives. So planning function begin with the setting of the objectives and goals of the organization. It makes the goal clear and specific. And through planning, the efforts and attention of all the employees goes towards the achievement of the organizational goals and objectives. Next, we have makes activities meaningful. So when goals of the organization are clearly defined, the action becomes meaningful. All the employees and managers become aware of their contribution towards the achievement of the organizational goals. They know that each of their contribution is very important towards the achievement of the organizational objectives. Next, we have brings order in place of chaos. So planning is deciding in advance how work is to be done. It provides direction, and this direction can bring the organization into the right path, avoiding any aimless and unnecessary action. Next, we have planning reduces the risk of uncertainty. So an organization have to face many uncertainties and unexpected situations like we're facing right now, an unexpected situation. We are all at home in this lockdown. We cannot go out of our home because of the virus to stay safe. So planning helps the manager to identify any potential danger and takes necessary steps to overcome them. The resources are kept aside in the plan to meet such kind of uncertainties and unexpected situation. Next, we have improves economy of operation. So planning allows making the best choice among the available alternatives, which helps to achieve the desired result, eliminating all kinds of waste. So planning helps to minimize the cost of operation and also to improve the competitive strength of the organization. Planning provides basis for control, and controlling means comparison between the planned and actual output, which help in identifying the deviation and taking corrective steps to match the actual output with the planned. We have already learned this in the chapter controlling. So if there is nothing, no plan at all, then we have nothing to control to because we have nothing to compare it to. So that's why planning provides basis for control. Next, we have promotes innovation and creativity. Planning requires high and creative thinking because a manager have to develop new ideas and applies those ideas to create new so that a new product and service can be created, which leads to the growth and expansion of the business. Thus, planning makes the manager innovative and creative. So the next importance is facilitate decision making. So planning helps the manager to take various decisions. As in planning, goals are set in advance and predictions are made for the future. And this prediction and goals helps the manager to take fast decisions. And the next importance of planning is helps in coordination. So planning gives direction to all the employees in the organization. And when all the employees know what their goals of the organization is, what they must contribute to reach the goals of the organization, then they can coordinate their activities and cooperate with each other to achieve the goals of the organization. Okay, so now we have come to the limitations of planning. The first limitation of planning is it is a costly process. So planning process involves a lot of cost because it is an intellectual process and companies need to hire professional experts to carry on this process. And along with the salary to be given to the expert, the company also need to spend money on collecting the accurate facts and figures that is required for planning. The next limitation of planning is time consuming. So planning is time consuming because it takes lots of time to collect, analyze, and integrate the information that is required for planning. So and also a lot of time is needed to evaluate the alternatives and also selecting the best alternatives. And the next limitation of planning is rigidity. So once plans are made, people tend to strictly follow those. And when circumstances or the environment changes may not bring positive result for the organization. And this type of rigidity in plan may create difficulty. And the next limitation of planning is lack of accuracy. So in planning, we are always thinking about the future. We are thinking advance and future is always uncertain. We have not seen the future. We don't know what is going to happen next. So in planning, many assumptions are made and these assumptions are not always 100% sure. And the next limitation of planning is false sense of security. So sometimes the manager and the employees have false sense of security that plan have worked out successfully in the past, so it will also work out in the future. But it may not be, it is not true always because future is uncertain and there may be many factors that lead to the failure of the plans in the future. And the next limitation of planning is psychological barrier. So with planning, people get what? Accustomed to the attitudes, belief, and tradition. and they resist the change along with the change in the that is happening in the business environment. And the next limitation of planning is external limitations. So sometimes plans may fail due to the limitation which is beyond the control of the manager. So the manager have no control over the changes in technologies, changes in government policies, or any kind of natural calamity and etc., which is beyond his control. So he can have no control over these limitations. So the plan may not work in this kind of situation. And the last limitation of planning is human elements. So sometimes some individuals or a group of individuals may use and formulate plans just for their own benefit instead of the benefit of the organization as a whole. So they make plans just to satisfy their needs, their personal needs. Okay, now we'll be learning about the steps that is required in the planning process, the steps in planning process. Let's look to the first step, it is setting of objectives. So plans are prepared to achieve certain objectives and goals of the organization. Therefore, the first steps in planning is to set up clear objectives of the organization, keeping in mind the goals of the company and also the availability of resources of the organization. Okay, the second step is developing the planning premises, and premises refer to making assumption regarding the future. Premises are the base on which plans are made. So once the objectives to be achieved are set, the next step is what? Making assumption about the future, and the assumption are made on the basis of forecasting. So forecasting is the technique of gathering information. And the third step is identifying alternative course of action. So after setting up of objectives, the manager may discover many alternatives to achieve the goal of the organization. And there will be many ways to achieve those goals. And the manager must know the best way to achieve the goals of the organization. The next step is evaluating alternatives and choosing the best alternatives. So after identifying the various alternatives, the manager can examine and compare those alternatives in terms of their costs and benefits. And after all these alternatives are examined, the manager may choose the best alternatives among them. So the next step in planning is formulating the right basic plan. So once the basic plan of the organization is set, the next plan is to make detailed plan to implement those plans. So to make the plan effective, the organization has to set up rules, policies, programs, schedules, budgets, and etc. And the next step is securing cooperation. So to make the plan effective, the understanding and wholehearted cooperation of all the employees of the organization is required. And so for that, the plan must be explained to the employees of the organization in detail. And the next step is follow-up plan. Since planning is a continuous process, the manager job doesn't end simply by putting the plan into action, but he has to review the existing plan to ensure their relevance and effectiveness. And also, if necessary adjustment and changes is needed, he may change it according to the change in the facts and environment. So that's it for today. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you.